What makes a city a capital? Seriously, think about it. Is it a title, a government building, a constitutional clause written 60 years ago? Or is it something harder to name? The place where the money moves, where the culture is shaped, where the decisions that define a nation actually get made. Ask the world to name Brazil's capital, and most people will say Rio. The informed ones will correct them. It's Brasilia. Technically, they're right, but technically doesn't run a country. São Paulo does. São Paulo's economy is larger than most countries. The city alone generates roughly 11% of Brazil's entire GDP. The state pushes that closer to a third. One state, a third of the national output. Let that sit for a second. Faria Lima, a single avenue in the Itaim Bibi district, concentrates more financial power per square meter than almost anywhere else in Latin America. Major banks, hedge funds, asset managers, venture capital firms that decide which companies live and which ones don't, all stacked on top of each other in glass towers along one road. B3, Brazil's stock exchange, is headquartered here, largest in Latin America, one of the largest in the world by market capitalization. Every publicly traded company in Brazil is priced on this floor. Every major IPO clears through this building. Brasilia writes the laws. São Paulo generates the wealth those laws attempt to govern. That's not an opinion. That's an accounting fact. When international investors evaluate Brazil, they don't fly to Brasilia. They land at Guarulhos. They take a car to Faria Lima. They sit in a conference room on the 30th floor and negotiate terms that will shape the Brazilian economy for the next decade. The political capital sets the rules. The economic capital plays the game. And in Brazil, the game is bigger than the rule book. São Paulo doesn't just create wealth, it moves it. Guarulhos International Airport, busiest in Latin America. More international routes, more cargo volume, more global connections than any airport in the southern hemisphere. If Brazil has a front door, this is it. The metro moves millions daily. The commuter rail connects over 20 million residents across the metro area. The highway network, Bandeirantes, Anhanguera, Imigrantes, links São Paulo to the industrial belt, the agricultural interior, and the port of Santos. Santos, Brazil's largest port, essentially São Paulo's dock. Commodities in, manufactured goods out. One of the busiest ports in the Americas, feeding directly into the city's economic engine. This is what operational power looks like. Not monuments, not symbols. Movement. Constant, relentless movement of people, goods, and capital through a system that doesn't pause. Brasilia was designed to govern. São Paulo was built to function. There's a difference. If you want to understand where Brazil connects to the global economy, don't look at the political map. Look at where the world's corporations chose to put their headquarters. The answer is overwhelming. São Paulo. Tech companies, automakers, consumer goods, pharma, consulting. If a global brand has a Latin American base, odds are it sits somewhere between Avenida Paulista and Vila Olímpia. The startup ecosystem runs through here. Accelerators, funding rounds, talent pipelines from USP, Unicamp, FGV, all within the São Paulo orbit. When foreign governments send trade delegations to Brazil, the first stop is almost always São Paulo. Not because Brasilia is irrelevant, because São Paulo is where the deals close. Brasilia hosts the embassy. São Paulo hosts the negotiation. In an era where economic influence often outweighs political authority, that distinction matters more than most people realize. São Paulo isn't just a city in Brazil's system, it's Brazil's operating system. Now, here's where the argument becomes hard to dismiss. São Paulo doesn't just run Brazil's economy, it shapes what Brazilians see, hear, wear, watch, and aspire to. The country's largest advertising agencies, based here. The fashion industry, São Paulo Fashion Week, largest in Latin America, based here. Publishing, design, architecture, all headquartered in this city. São Paulo shapes Brazil's narrative more than any other city, including the one that's supposed to be the capital. None of this diminishes Brasilia, that should be clear. Brasilia was an extraordinary act of ambition, a planned city built from nothing in the interior of the country, designed by Niemeyer and Costa, constructed in the late 50s to pull political power away from the coast. Congress sits there, the Supreme Court operates there, the presidency governs there. It does what it was built to do, but what it was built to do has limits. Brasilia is the architecture of authority. Clean lines, wide avenues, symmetry, order. Everything about it says control. São Paulo is the opposite. Dense, loud, unplanned, unfinished. Everything about it says motion. Brasilia governs Brazil the way a brain sends signals, through directives and legislation. São Paulo is the circulatory system, the muscle, the metabolism, the thing that keeps the organism alive when the brain sleeps. One is the city that represents the state, the other represents the country, and those are not the same thing. So, what makes a city a capital? If it's a legal designation, a line in a constitution, then Brasilia is the capital. Case closed. But if a capital is defined by gravity, by where the money flows, where the culture is forged, where the future of a country is negotiated daily in trading floors and recording studios and late-night meetings on the 30th floor, then the answer shifts hard. São Paulo isn't beautiful the way Rio is. It doesn't symbolically manner the way Brasilia is. It doesn't photograph well. It doesn't try to charm you. But it runs Brazil, quietly, relentlessly, every single day. While the rest of the country sleeps, São Paulo is still trading, still building, still creating, still moving. Brasilia is the capital Brazil chose. São Paulo is the capital Brazil built.